Dude, why does nothing work around here?
Uh,
Because I didn't bring the thing that I need in order to like pull the audio off of the TriCaster today. So that means I got to go all the way back to the house to get the one dongle that
Yep.
I need in order to do that.
You don't have another thumb drive handy, do you?
It's not the thumb drive. It's the fact that I got the new Apple computer that only has USB-C, not USB. So I have to have a converter everywhere I go. And of course, I didn't bring one today. So what a gigantic waste. Well, welcome back, everybody. This is the Jason Stapleton program, broadcasting once again from the Random Walk Studios, deep in the heart of America. I'm so glad that you are here today. And guys, I gotta tell you this, because if I don't, I'm gonna forget, and then we're gonna be in trouble tomorrow. But there actually is no show tomorrow because I have to go to Washington, D.C. And I'm gonna be gone for 8 days. It's a mess. But we do have some very positive things happening, and I'll tell you a little bit about those. Number one is that while I'm in Washington, D.C., I'm going to be having a get-together at just down the road. I think it's around the corner from where I'm staying. And we got about 44 people registered, almost 50 people now, I think, registered to attend. So not a bad showing.
Hopefully you're not staying at that place we did last time.
Where was that?
That was terrible.
No, that was an awful place.
That
No,
Marriott?
we won't be staying there.
Oh.
Now, normally we would stay at some dump because that tent, well, it's not a dump, but it's like when I go places, it's typically for convention because something I'm going to something, and it's normally really, really nice hotels.
Yeah, typically.
And when I've been going around for this television show, it's like Fairfield Inn, which is nothing wrong with a Fairfield. It's a fine hotel.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a Fairfield.
Yeah,
you know? It ain't.
It's not a Waldorf.
That's right. It's not a really nice 5-star hotel on the beach. But this one's going to be, I don't know. We're down near DuPont Circle is where I'm staying, and we're going to be shooting every day, so it's going to be a pain. But on Saturday night, we're going to be doing an event. Now, I don't have the information for the event. You need to be on the email list. That's one of the reasons you need to be on the email list, is because I sent out an email to everybody. And also, if you happen to be on our notification list via Facebook, we sent a Facebook message out to all of you who are on that as well. If you happen to be, because we got 25, 30,000 people who listen to this show every day, and if you happen to be one of the 20,000 who isn't signed up, you're doing yourself a disservice, because that's how we communicate with you guys. And there's also going to be a really good reason for you guys to sign up for that as well, because starting when I get back from this trip, I'm going to start posting my stack and sending it out via email every single day. So I don't know how I'm going to do it. I have no idea how I'm going to have time to do it, but it seems like something simple I can do, and all of you are asking. So, for example, I got this stack of, I don't know, this huge stack of paperwork here of all the articles that I thought were interesting today, and chances of us getting to all of them are almost zero. But a lot of you guys want to know where the article is that I reference, and you want to be able to dig through it, and you also want to see what else I was reading that you didn't get a chance to hear about during the show. And so what we're going to do is anybody who is signed up for the email list is going to get a chance to get that email every day. And I hope that what I don't want to do is I hate inundating people with stuff they don't want. So I don't want to be sending out emails every day, just like follow-up emails, because lots of people do that. They just send up their digest every day, and I don't want to do that. Like, I like communicating when there's important information to pass. But this is something that you guys have been asking for. Easiest way for me to do it is just to send it to you via email. And guys, hopefully that will entice you to go to jasonstapleton.com and sign up on the email list. So if you're not there, just go there. Any sign-up form on the Jason Stapleton website will work, and that will put you on the right list so that you can be getting the updates. I'm sure I'm forgetting something. What else am I forgetting?
I don't know.
No? Okay.
I think you're good.
Maybe that's it. Okay. But I have been, this has been a whirlwind. I've had about a week and a half in this entire month that I've been home, and I've been trying to squeeze in all of the work that I would normally do in 30 days into a week and a half. And I am, I'm a ball of fury right now. Every minute of every day is jam-packed full of work that I'm doing, but I'm glad I get to kind of take a break and sit down with you guys and talk a little bit about what's happening in the markets and what's happening in politics, because I think it's I think we've got some interesting things a brewing, and I want to share with you some of my ideas. And I thought we would start by taking a look at this argument of rising inequality. There's an article in the New York Times. Don't worry, this is not going to be another one of the typical inequality's bad or nothing's wrong with inequality and me quashing this. I want to talk to you realistically about why we're seeing increasing disparities in inequality, and also a little bit about the way the economy is changing. And basically, if you're trying to obtain and sustain a middle class life, doing what your parents and your grandparents did, you're going to lose. The economic landscape, the world that we live in the 21st century, is completely different than it was even just 20 or 30 years ago. And the days of you working for a company for 30 years that you joined right after you got out of high school, and you got your pension and you got your retirement savings and you got your vacation, and you just that was what you did for your living, those days are gone. So you can lament them if you like. You can complain about how wrong it is and about how companies ought to be paying that, but the truth is they're not. So you can adapt or you can die. And the problem with society today is, and the problem with a lot of Americans, especially young people who are getting out of school, is that they're finding out that what the bill that their parents sold them, this idea that if you go to college and if you work hard and if you study hard, that when you get out, the job will be waiting for you, is a lie. It wasn't a lie when they told it to you, because when they were telling it to you, it really was the truth. That's how they got ahead. Some of them were the very first people in their families to ever go to college. They worked minimum wage jobs, they worked low-end blue-collar jobs, and Dad, who was working at the factory, realized in the 1930s and 40s that, hey, the way my boy's going to get ahead is he's going to go to college. He's not going to end up on the factory line like me. And so the idea was, in order to go and to get that white-collar job, to be working in management, you had to get the college degree. And because college degrees were, they weren't common. It's not like they were uncommon, but you get what I'm saying. It wasn't as common as getting out of school and going to work at the factory or down at the mill. You had a lot of people, those were in high demand. And if you got out of school with a college degree, higher education, you could get a good job. Working for a company for 30 years, drawing a retirement and a pension, good vacation, nice standard of living. And if that's really all you wanted, was a steady job that you could rely on, enough food to feed your family, and a little time off, a little extra in your pocket to do some fun stuff with, then that was pretty good life. And when they sold that to you, especially those of you who are millennials out there, they weren't selling you a lie. They were selling you the way they understood the world to be. The problem is that is not the world today. It's one of the things I keep harping on with you, both those of you who have jobs and those of you who are looking to get into the workforce, is that if you are not thinking about things differently, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. So the New York Times article talks about rising inequality, looking at two different companies and the janitors who worked at those companies, both then and now. And originally, as you can imagine, when I started reading this article, my defenses were up. It's coming from the New York Times. I assumed this was going to be a bash on big business and how they're really screwing over the little guy. And it was much more nuanced than that. And as I got through, the first 2 or 3 pages, I started to realize, the writer of this article, it's Neil Irwin, I said really hit on some very good points about what's happening to society, what's happening to the workforce, and some of the problems that exist if you try and apply the standard of 1980 to 2017. And the two gals that they profile in this are Marta Ramos, who is a janitor at Apple headquarters, and Gail Evans, who also started as a janitor in the 1980s. And the argument that he makes initially is, well, in the 1980s, when Kodak was running its company, the janitors worked for Kodak. Kodak gave them, or it was roughly about the same money for being a janitor yesterday, if you account for inflation. But one of the things that the gal working for Kodak got was she got 2 weeks of paid vacation. She got some tuition assistance. It doesn't say how much, but she got a little bit. And she got a bonus in March. And so these were some of the added benefits that she had that Ms. Ramos doesn't have working for Apple, because she doesn't actually work for Apple directly. She works for a contracting company that is hired by Apple to clean their facilities. And the idea then is, if you don't work directly for the company, that the incentives that you have, the available resources, the opportunity just isn't there. Now, Miss Evans, who worked for Kodak, ended up going to school at night. I'm assuming she did that even though she was working a full-time job, and it was probably a very difficult job, probably just as difficult as Marta Ramos's job is today. She probably worked just as many hours, but during her time off, she went to school. And she ended up learning a little bit about computer programming. Now, if you were to think back in the 1980s and early 90s, computer programming was brand new. It was cutting edge science. And to a lot of people, I mean, even IBM thought it was crazy that every American would have a desktop computer. Like, IBM completely missed the mark. They're the largest technology computer company on the planet at the time, and they laughed at the idea that there was going to be a desktop computer. So you can imagine the risk Miss Evans was taking when she went to school to study such an obscure science. But she recognized something. She was looking not at the past, the way her parents and her grandparents had made their money, but she was looking at how is she going to make money in the future. And it turns out that as Miss Evans was learning this, that one of the people who worked for Kodak found out about it. And she started asking this janitor if she would come in and teach some of the people in her office how to do things like spreadsheet work. And as she started to grow, and she got offered a job doing some of their research and development and being involved in their technology division. And she eventually grew up to be one of the managers at Kodak. Now, Marta Ramos works just as many hours. She doesn't have some of the same vacation time, and she might not have some of the tuition assistance, but she isn't going to school. She's not doing any of the things that one might expect you would do if you didn't want to stay where you were at. And to be fair and honest, there were probably plenty of janitors in the 1980s who didn't grow up to be Miss Evans, who didn't end up, being managers at one of the largest companies in the world. She's an exception to the rule. But they have correctly identified this concept, or this idea that, hey, without some advantages, it becomes more difficult for people to move out of lower class and into the middle class, which is kind of the American dream. Like I said, have a house, a couple of kids, little retirement money, enough cash in your pocket at the end of the month that you could take a vacation at the end of the year, those kinds of things, the simple life. I mean, I think sometimes we forget just how good we have it. That most people worked from the time they were 13 and died at the ripe old age of 48 on the, out in the field from exhaustion. I mean, we really live in a time that is unlike any other available to us. And although society is changing, and although the economy is changing, it doesn't mean that hope is lost. Let me continue reading. The author says, think about the contrast between George Eastman, who pioneered fundamental innovations in photography, he's the guy who started Kodak, and Steve Jobs. While Eastman's innovation and their what is that? And their dissemination? Sound like it. I graduated from high school. I'm educated. While Kodak provided a foundation for a prosperous middle class in Rochester for generations, no comparable impact has been created in Jobs' innovation. So the idea is that, hey, because of the time period, because of the way Kodak ran its company, you saw tens of thousands of people be able to join the ranks of the middle class because of the work that was required under Kodak, the labor that was required. And the way Kodak set up its company provided jobs to a lot of people. It says, Part of the wild success of Silicon Valley giants today and what makes their stocks so appealing to investors has come from their ability to attain huge revenue and profits with relatively few workers. Apple, Alphabet, which owns Google, and Facebook generate $333 billion in revenue combined last year with 205,000 employees worldwide. In 1993, three of the most successful technology-oriented companies on Earth, Kodak, IBM, and AT&T, needed more than 3 times as many employees, 675,000, to generate 27% less in inflation-adjusted revenue. So that to break that down and make it simple, in 1993, it required 3 times as many people to make 27% less revenue. Now, why is that? Well, technology is killing jobs. It just is. The jobs of yesterday, the assembly line jobs, the jobs making film or standing on an assembly line, putting cars together, those jobs are going away. The ones that aren't being completely crushed by technology are being shifted to areas where labor is cheaper. This is a natural occurring truth about economics, is that wherever you can get the cheapest possible price for the resources you're after, that's where it'll go. And so a lot of the jobs that do remain in the factory style work that we've been accustomed to since really the Industrial Revolution are leaving the United States. It says the 10 most valuable tech companies have 1.5 million employees, according to calculations by Michael Mandel of the Progressive Policy Institute, compared with 2.2 million by the 10 biggest industrial companies in 1979. Again, more productivity, more revenue, fewer workers. You see, it's not that the companies are bad. It's not that they're evil. It's not that they're doing anything wrong. And truthfully, the author here doesn't try and make that case. All the author is simply saying is, look, jobs are disappearing. The opportunity for people to go and work for a company, make a middle-class income, and not have to worry, those days are going away. It says, and the phenomenon stretches far beyond Silicon Valley, where companies like Apple are just a peculiarity and an extreme example of a huge business success with a relatively small employee count. Federal Express delivery person who brings you a package may well be an independent contractor. Many of the people who help banks like Citigroup and JP Morgan service loans and collect delinquent payments work for contractors. And if you call your employer's computer help desk, there's a good chance it will be picked up by someone in another state or another country. And then they give this example. And from after this example, I'll kind of tie this all together. But it says, Phil Hardin was a forklift operator in 1970. He took the job right after he got out of the Navy. He made $3 an hour, the equivalent of what was $20 an hour today if you adjusted it for inflation. That's roughly what an entry-level contracting job testing software pays. The difference between the two gigs, aside from the absence of heavy machinery in Apple's sleek offices, is a sense of permanency. Mr. Hardin had put in 16 years operating a forklift before he left in 1986 to move to Florida, and when he returned 10 years later, he was quickly rehired and even kept his seniority and benefits. On the flip side, those people who are looking for contracting work testing software are often not allowed to stay at a job more than 12 to 18 months, which means there is a life cycle. It's contract work rather than steady employment. Now, the first thing that I will point out to you is Mr. Hardin worked for a company for 16 years, apparently never learned a new skill, never improved himself, never built on what he knew how to do. And after 16 years, he left. And he left for 10 years. That's a total of 26 years. And when he came back 26 years later with apparently the exact same skill set, he was given his job back, and he also kept his seniority status. Ladies and gentlemen, the days of you being able to sit around and rest on your laurels, run the forklift, and wait for the union for your time to come up so that you can move up the ladder and increase your pay without increasing your value, those days are over. Days of you getting out of college and having a job waiting for you because they're just so short of people with college degrees is over. The days of you working for a company for 26, 30, 40 years and then retiring with a pension and a paid-off mortgage, those days are over too. But that doesn't mean that the future isn't bright. If you read this article, what are they talking about? They're talking about a massive amount of outsourcing. People who are selling loans or servicing loans, people who are cleaning the offices at Apple. There are opportunities all around you for you to make a fortune doing something more efficient and cheaper than a company can do it on its own. Now, I'm not saying that the world is going to stay this way, but for the foreseeable future, I see a move away from big business and back to small business. I've been preaching this to you for months and months and months because I see opportunities all around me. Different businesses to start, different ideas that you can bring to fruition. The internet has created for us an incredible resource to which we can sell either products we create or ideas that we manufacture or services that we provide or just our own knowledge. And the question is, are you going to accept the fact that you live in the 21st century, or are you going to opine about how good the old days were? Because guys, I think tomorrow is going to be brighter than today. I tend to work that way. I tend to think that way. Mainly because if I didn't think that, wouldn't I want to kill myself? I mean, if the best days are behind me, if I'm so old and so decrepit that, there's nothing else of value that I can do because it's straight downhill from here, why continue? You have to be willing to accept that for you, the future can be brighter. Now, it might not be brighter for Miss Ramos, who's cleaning toilets at Apple, who doesn't have the ambition or the time or the ability to go back to school and better herself. But wherever you are in your life right now, there's a good chance that you have that time. Most of you listening to this show have decades of work in front of you. The question is, what are you going to do with that time? What are you going to use? You work 8, 10, 12 hours a day, a lot of you. You are at work more than you do anything else in your life, other than maybe sleep. And the question is, what exactly are you going to do with those hours? Are you going to continue to struggle in a job that you don't enjoy, that is unfulfilling to you? Doing work that you hate, working for people that you despise? Or are you going to make a decision to change your life? For those of you who are young and who are coming out of school, are you planning for that? Are you understanding that when you leave school, that nobody's going to be standing there waiting to hand you a job when you leave? What are you doing? Are you going to be starting your own company? Are you going to be doing contract work for someone else? What's your plan? Are you even going to school to do what you love? Or are you at the beginning stage of boxing yourself into a corner and shackling yourself with a life that you don't really want? There's no reason that you have to end up at the bottom if you start at the bottom. What you have to do is you have to make a decision to change, and then you have to take appropriate action to ensure that that change happens. Now, let me tell you guys a little bit about a way that you can do that using Skillshare. Guys, if you are a professional looking to get a leg up or just someone who loves learning things, then you should try Skillshare. It's an online learning community with over 15,000 classes in design, business, and more, and you can learn everything from logo design to social media marketing to street photography. Unlimited access for one low price. You never pay per class. You got stuff like marketing, entrepreneurship, branding, web design, public speaking. Learn how to use Illustrator or Photoshop. street photography, photo editing, everything. Skillshare is giving my listeners a month of unlimited access absolutely free. Go to Skillshare.com/Stapleton to redeem your free month. That's Skillshare.com/Stapleton to get a free month of unlimited classes. Go and learn yourself something new. Get started today. Do it now, move. Somebody asked me to do that. You don't even, that's a Marine Corps thing. All right.
I was over here having an epiphany.
What do you?
You get this business idea.
Go ahead.
I'm not going to share it.
Why not?
Because
is it that good?
it's that good.
So what my
take
speech?
Some notes
hang on, I just want to make sure that I understand this correctly. My speech,
Yep.
motivating and rousing as it was, triggered something within your subconscious and brought it to the forefront of your mind that was so intriguing you had to write it down.
Roger that.
You're welcome.
So if it works, I'll give you like, I don't know, good 2.5–3%.
Really?
If I can pull it off.
Is that right? All right then.
It's fantastic. I'll share it with you.
Okay. Well, we'll learn about it later.
I already tried to buy the domain, but it's taken, so I have to come up with a new name.
Oh.
These are the things. This is what multitasking looks like. I'm over here running the show and coming up with $1 million business ideas.
Love it.
Can't teach that.
No, you can't teach that. That's either I got it or you don't. All right. So Trump wants to fix the economy by fixing our self-destructive tax code. And he says, this is a copy of his speech. He says, our self-destructive tax code, I don't have a Donald Trump voice, by the way. He says, our self-destructive tax code, he said it's real monotone.
You got to start out by, you're welcome.
You're welcome. You're fired.
You're welcome.
A self-destructive tax code, millions costs Americans millions of jobs, trillions of dollars, and billions of hours spending on complicated paperwork. And I read this line. Our destructive tax code costs Americans millions of jobs, trillions of dollars, and billions of hours spent complying with paperwork. And I say to myself, well, yeah, but what happens if you actually become more efficient? Can you imagine how many jobs we would lose how many accountants would be out of work through this efficiency?
Yeah.
We need this inefficiency in order to keep jobs, right?
Be catastrophic to our economy if we were more efficient.
I mean, this is the argument that they make about technologies. They say, technology is killing our jobs. We've got to stop this technology. Really? You want to become less efficient?
It's why I have to pay a convenience fee to pay for my registration online instead of sending a check via snail mail.
Right.
Explain that to me.
I can tell you why, because they don't like paying the credit card charge. When I go in to do, here's the thing. When I go in to do my tax or to pay my tags and taxes, they charge me the 3.5% fee.
So do the math. Would you rather pay the 2% charge, or would you rather pay an employee $40,000–$50,000 a year plus benefits and retirement? What's cheaper?
Oh, I know.
To pay the processing fee or to pay an employee?
I just bought tickets. Took the family to see what was the name of that show? Leap, last night. And when I bought the tickets online, they charged me a fee for doing it online rather than doing it at the store. And I'm like, why would you do that?
Right.
That makes absolutely no sense to me. Other than, hey, it's an easy way for them to screw me out of another $8 or whatever it was.
Well, I get that, because when I go to the gun shop, I know I can pay cash and he'll waive the fee. So if I pay with a credit card, it's going to be one price. But if I pay cash, it's cheaper.
Sure.
So I'll pay cash. So I can understand that. But when it comes to the government, it doesn't make sense that they're going to charge me an extra $2.50 as a convenience fee to use my credit card, because they're going to pay some person sitting behind a desk $40,000 a year to process my mailed in check. Doesn't add up.
So Trump goes on to say, I want to work with Congress on a plan that is pro-growth, pro-jobs, pro-worker, and pro-American.
How can you be against that?
You can't be. I want him to work with Congress on that too. So we are the same. Therefore, I like him. It says our plan will dramatically reduce income taxes for American workers and families. It will nearly double the standard deduction to help families get ahead, and it will make our complex tax code more simple and fair. It will put money back in the pockets of people who have earned it, and it will bring back American jobs by making our businesses competitive once again. And I'm thinking to myself, really? That's a whole lot of really great stuff. Where can I see this plan? Oh,
It's in the works.
Doesn't exist.
It's going to be great.
No, it's like when Obamacare came before Congress and spent an hour talking about his plan for health care, and his plan didn't actually exist. Like all the stuff that he talked about was just stuff he made up. Like, boy, I'd really like to reduce taxes by $250-$2,500 per person, and that's what my plan will do. Really, where's your plan at? Because the one in front of Congress doesn't do that. And this is the exact same thing. You see, the people change, the parties change, the message never changes, the lies never change. Trump doesn't have a plan. There's no plan sitting around because the one that they wrote, here's the thing, they have one that they wrote and they kind of put together before the Obamacare amendment crashed. And once that crashed, everything that they wrote went out the window. They can't use it. So he's not talking about specifics here. He's just complaining, or he's just waxing poetic about all of the things that he plans to do and that he thinks will be wonderful once they're done. He says, we owe it to the American people to fix this broken system. American businesses want to prosper on our shores. The middle-class families are ready for more growth, more jobs, and higher pay. Again, we talked about it last week. We're poking right directly at the middle class. Why? Because it's the largest demographic. All right? That's why my administration is embracing a new economic model, the American model. We don't know what that model is, by the way, because it's just words. But that's what we're doing. It says, under this system, we will encourage companies to hire and grow American, to raise wages for American workers, and to help rebuild our American cities and communities. Americans will succeed and grow together as one team with one shared sense of purpose and one glorious American destiny. That's rather socialist, isn't it? We're going to grow together as one team, one shared sense of purpose. That's clearly not capitalist rhetoric. That's designed and points directly towards the socialist idea. And I love this word encourage. This is important. See, words matter. Because the government, politicians use words differently than you and I use words. When I say I'm going to encourage you to listen to my show, it means I'm going to say, hey, you might want to listen to my show because it's pretty awesome, and you might learn a little something about the way politicians talk to you so that you don't get duped by them all the time. And that might intrigue you to listen to the show and learn what it is I'm talking about. When politicians use the term encourage, what they really mean is force. This should read, we will force companies to hire and hire American, raise wages for American workers, and help them rebuild our American cities. That's what encourage means. Encourage means we're going to pass laws, we're going to pass regulation that make it difficult, if not impossible, for companies to operate in a way that we find unsatisfactory. And he no doubt will, because the president is not liberty-minded. The president is not a constitutionalist or even a conservative. The president is some, I don't know, very watered-down version of progressive. He's some form of crony capitalist, from what I can tell. And he's in favor of doing whatever is necessary to get what he wants, which is kind of like really what crony capitalism is. It says, I don't really care whether what I do is dishonest or what I do hurts people. I don't really care who I have to buy as long as I come out on top. And that's just part of capitalism too. Capitalism is an imperfect thing. And so the president out there saying he's going to start this wonderful new plan called the American model that nobody knows what it is, but it's going to be wonderful. Just trust him. And by the way, he's going to encourage all of the companies to buy American, to hire American, and to build a better America together in one voice for one American destiny. Powerful, powerful stuff. Meanwhile, 40% of Americans prefer socialism over capitalism. I didn't really believe that until I read the article, and I want to tell you a little bit about it as soon as I tell you about Harry's. Guys, if you're looking for a beautiful, clean, comfortable shave that doesn't cost you a fortune, then you ought to go to harrys.com/Stapleton to get an entire trial shave set for free. All you got to do is pay the shipping. Harry's is got over 3 million guys have switched to Harry's. I'm one of them. Jeff and Andy, two ordinary guys, started the company because they were tired of paying way too much money for razor blades. And right now, this trial offer, a $13 value, yours free when you sign up. Just cover the shipping costs. The free trial set includes a weighted ergonomic razor handle, 5 precision-engineered blades with a lubricating strip and trimmer blade, rich lathering shave gel, and a travel blade cover. You get it all free when you go to harrys.com/Stapleton right now. That's harrys.com/Stapleton. Guys, Harry's is an exceptional company. It's the razor that I now use, and I will continue to use it even if Harry's chooses not to be a sponsor of this show anymore, because I really do like it. So go check them out. Now, someone asked me to explain behavioral economics. And it's kind of funny because I think psychology is perhaps the most underutilized and most dangerous bit of economics that doesn't get applied very well. Marketers understand behavioral economics probably better than behavioral economists do. But I'm not sure I can tell you exactly what behavioral economics is, because I don't the science of it. I'm not an economist, and I know that what they're really doing is they're trying to figure out, or they're asking the question: do human beings utilize or really maximize expected utility well? And then if they do, why? And if they don't, why? And that is probably going to confuse a lot of people, and it should, because it's gobbledygook. But let me try and explain it to you in a way that I think you will understand. Human beings are emotional creatures. We make decisions emotionally, and then we justify it rationally. Because of that, we will oftentimes make two very different decisions about the same about the two very different choices about the same decision, depending on where we're at in our lives. So, did you know, for example, that whether or not you just got paid, meaning there's money in your bank account or not, will determine whether or not you risk a toss of the dice in order to receive perhaps a bit of money. So if someone stops you on the street and says, "Hey, we'd like to give you this free gift, or we can flip a coin, and if it comes up heads, we'll give you the free gift plus $100. Which one would you like?" Now, that scenario is exactly the same whether you just got paid or not. But having been paid has a determination as to whether or not you will take the free gift or the $100 option. It also has a difference. It makes a difference if you make the bonus bigger or smaller. And so what behavioral economists are trying to do is they're trying to figure out why you don't weigh everything in pure pluses and minuses. It's as though you drew a line on the paper and you had all the pluses on one side and all the minuses on the other, and whichever one wins, that should be the decision that you make. But we don't do that because we don't think rationally. A great example of this was when we're looking at Houston and the storm damage there. When people are showing up to buy water, I mean, I've got an article in the paper talking about how damaging the next storm might be, and Floridians are already buying the store shelves out of water. They're stockpiling it. And you might say to yourself, well, when they show up at the store, surely they're calculating, okay, this might be a week. How much water do I need for a week? And then buying enough water in order to get them through the week and leaving the rest for someone else. But we know that's not true. We know people come in, they're going to buy truckloads of water, some of them for nefarious purposes because they intend to sell it later at a higher markup. But nobody is walking into the store when they're in that kind of emotional state and making rational buying decisions. And this is because we know the economic principle behind this, okay? We understand that as demand goes up, supply becomes more scarce, and therefore prices tend to rise. What's really interesting about it, and what any good marketer will tell you is, do you know or do you realize that you can create extra demand for something by making artificial scarcity happen. So this is something Apple does every single time they release a new product. The iPhone 8 is going to be out soon. And they're going to start talking about it at their event in September and talking about how now they've moved the plug-in to the top or whatever other goofy thing that they're doing now that they think is, monumental in new technology. And then you're going to have to wait 2 or 3 weeks before you can get the phone. That 2 or 3 weeks is a build-up phase. It's a phase where they can continue to talk about it, and certain people will get their hands on it, and they'll get to look at it and play with it, and they'll put out videos online talking about it just to get everybody amped up about this new product that's hitting the market. And then the second it's able to be purchased, within 4 hours, they'll be completely sold out. Completely sold out, and everyone else will have to wait a month to get their phone. Now, why do you think that is? Do you think it's because Apple's too broke to print up the 2 million phones or the 20 million phones or whatever it is that they would sell in a single day if that's what they wanted to do? No. They got more money than the federal government does. They could absolutely print up as many phones as they needed to. They'll eventually sell them, but they don't. Why not? They're increasing the demand, the desire for the product by increasing the scarcity. Artificially manufactured scarcity. And any good marketer can tell you that that's how you increase sales. You can also increase price that way as well. Price is really relative to what someone thinks and how someone thinks and views your product. I am holding in my hand a Fiji water. I happen to like Fiji water because as bottled waters go, it's alkaline. And most of the bottled waters that uses like a reverse osmosis takes minerals out, and then it becomes very acidic. And we live in a very acidic environment, and our lives are very acidic. And so anything that you can do to kind of help alkaline your body is a good thing. So I like Fiji water. Fiji water is, I don't know what it is. Well, I actually have no idea what it costs, but I imagine it's probably $3 for this bottle that I've got in my hand. And the stuff coming out of my tap's super cheap, and it's also alkaline. So why don't I drink it? Well, but frankly, because I've been conditioned that this water is better and it's worth $3.50.
That's why I filter my water through Black Rifle coffee beans.
Yeah, that gets all the good stuff into it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it gets all the minerals and nutrients you need. Yeah. The point is, it's water in a bottle. And Penn and Teller did a great show on bottled water that just knocks the cover off the bottle. They filled it all up with a garden hose, and then they asked people to judge the different waters, and it's all garden hose water. And to give you an idea of perceived value. So that's what behavioral economics is. And as I said, guys who do marketing, who write sales copy, who sell for a living, understand behavioral economics far better than any economist does, I think. But that's, if I'm going to try and explain it to you, that's how I'll explain it to you, is what behavioral economics is trying to figure out why people make irrational decisions. And if you want a good place to start, there's a book called Predictably Irrational. It's an exceptional book written about this very subject, how people make irrational decisions, but they tend to do it predictably. And that's really what behavioral economics is trying to do, is it's trying to figure out, is there a predictable pattern to how people will respond given certain environmental and economic conditions? And to find out more, Robert Shiller, I believe, is the guy who kind of founded the idea of behavioral economics, and probably a good place to start. He has plenty of research. I believe he's still a professor at Yale and is a highly sought-after expert on that particular topic. But switching back over here to talk a little bit about Americans who now prefer, apparently 40% of them, socialism to capitalism, I find it funny that now this is not kids, because they said people under 30. Well, of course, people under 30, because they don't have jobs. Most of them are going to school, and yeah, they've been indoctrinated since they were children. They're at a college somewhere being indoctrinated by some of the most, economic illiterate people on the planet. And yeah, they would naturally prefer socialism to capitalism. But it was odd that this study actually shows that 40% of Americans have a favorable view of socialism. And all I can figure And Darren, you may have a thought on this, but all I can figure is this is a system where we have sugar-coated what socialism is. And people are getting out of school and they're, like we just talked about at the beginning of the show, they don't have jobs, they don't know where to go to get jobs, and the promises that have been made to them are not being fulfilled. And so naturally there is this gravitation that says, if I've done everything that I'm supposed to do, everything that people told me to do, I did it, and I still have nothing, well, then something's screwed up and somebody ought to make it right, and therefore socialism would be good. Wealth redistribution would be the right thing. And that's all I can figure, because there's absolutely no historical, rational reason to want to favor socialism over capitalism. None, other than a pure desire to be charitable. But it's always somebody else who needs to be charitable to us when we're talking about socialism. We are never the charitable ones. It's always somebody else who needs to give us a little bit more.
Right. Well, and what was the first thing that I said to you when you told me that 40% of Americans favor socialism?
I don't remember. It was so long ago.
I said 40% of Americans don't know what socialism is.
Well, that is true. No, you're very right.
And I think it goes to the current educational system, and they're not taught about the failures of socialism. They're taught about the evils of capitalism and the evils of greed and the evils of profit and that type of thing. And so, like you said, they have this expectation of how things are supposed to be when they get out of college. They're supposed to have this six-figure job and things are supposed to be easy for them. And since they're not, they're wondering why. Well, we currently operate under a, quote unquote capitalist system, and since I don't have what I'm supposed to have, obviously this capitalism stuff doesn't work.
Right.
And the socialism stuff, it sounds friendly, it sounds like everybody's gonna prosper and everybody's gonna be well off, and so I like that. And it to me, it seems like it's an emotional response more than a rational response, obviously, because if it was a rational response, you would look at it and you would look at historical performance and say, well, it's never worked, why would it work now?
Right, exactly. And I think you hit the nail on the head. I think it's an emotional response. It has absolutely nothing to do with reality or logic-based thinking. Because if you took 5 minutes in an internet search, you would realize the massive carnage that has come from socialist and communist ideas.
Right.
Communism really is, no matter how you slice it, it's failed socialism. So this idea that, everybody will share and everybody will get a bigger piece of the pie and no one will be rich and no one will be poor, we'll all just be good people together, can work on a small scale. It really can. There are socialist communes, and as long as people are free to come and go as they please, I have no issue with it. Like, I'm fine right now today with a socialist commune starting up right here in Kansas City. As long as joining is voluntary, have no issue with it.
Yeah. Another thing I was going to ask you, did it say like the age group or who they asked? They just said 40%. Did they give
let me dig through. I'd have to look, and I didn't highlight it.
If I had to guess, I would say that a majority of them were probably younger people who have never experienced the real world. They've never probably held a job, and all their life somebody else has been providing everything that they need. Their parents paid for their college, their parents supplied their food, the college provided their dorm, and so they've never actually had to go out and earn, and then they haven't felt the experience of working really, really hard and earning something, and then somebody taking half of it away.
Well, they actually have
they want to give it to somebody else.
Yeah, they have the people under 30, 55%. The number jumps from 40 to 55% of people under 30.
Okay, so more than half of them are under 30 years old.
No. I'm
right?
saying no. Of the people they surveyed,
yes.
If you take just those under 30, 55% of them prefer socialism over capitalism.
I got you.
So,
so that would kind of support my
it does. It supports your theory that the younger you are, the more
likely you are.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And the truth is, once you get out of school and you start making some money, people are progressive when they're in college, and then they become more conservative as they get older because they amass a little bit of wealth and they get tired of everybody sticking their hand in their pocket.
Yeah. Another thing I think would be interesting to look at is the people that are over 30, what their occupation is. So if they work in a government job or if they work in the public schooling system versus if they're an entrepreneur and they own their own business or that type of thing.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, guys, let me tell you about Smart Move. If you are a landlord, your number one concern has to be getting good tenants. How do you know your tenant has great credit and repeatedly pays their bills on time? You know, evicting a tenant can cost as much as $3,500 and can take up to 4 weeks. Stop doing that. Stop dealing with that headache. How would you know whether or not you're getting a good tenant? Let me share about Smart Move with you and let you find out how you can save up to 25% off your next tenant screening and get great rental applicants. Guys, Smart Move is simple and convenient. It's 100% online. You can get credit reports, criminal background checks, and eviction records from TransUnion. You can get great tenants, tenants can get information they need to help them pick the right tenant. That didn't even make sense. You can get the information you need to pick the right tenant. No fees, no minimums, pay per use. Only get charged when you run a screening, and doesn't impact the renter's credit score either, which is another good thing because if somebody's going around and they're looking at several different places, that's one of the benefits you can offer them. Say, hey, I got to run your credit, but I got to run some checks on you, but don't worry, it's not going to affect your credit score. If you own rental property or you know someone who does, try Smart Move so you don't find out the hard way that a prospective tenant is an eviction risk. Go to tenantscreening.com, enter code Stapleton to get $25 off your next screening. Don't be in the dark about your applicant's rental history. Know your tenants with Smart Move Tenant Check. Go to tenantscreening.com, enter my code Stapleton to get started. With Smart Move, you'll get great reports, great convenience, and great tenants. The last thing I'll talk about today is this apparently new storm, Irma, that's festering out in the Atlantic Ocean, and everybody is freaking out about this. I mean, this thing is days away from potentially impacting the coast. And I mean, it's really, the trajectory could go anywhere at this point. And they're saying it's a category 4, maybe 5 now. And they're already talking about, we might have to come up with a new category. There might be a category 6, the super deadly, most awesome hurricane deal.
Category 6 is going to be called Al Gore, I Told You So.
The
Al Gore, I Told You So category.
And I'm thinking about this and I'm going, but not that you shouldn't be prepared, because I think that, look, if you think that something's going to happen, for me personally, I have a stockpile of water at my home already. I could already live a week without water easily, probably longer than that if we needed to get by. Plus I have a pond in the backyard. So I'm not in terribly bad shape, but I'm prepped all the time for just such an event as this. But if you're not someone who is, I have no problem with you going out and becoming prepared at the slightest hint that disaster may be ready to strike. What I think is funny is the way the media is treating this like it's a foregone conclusion in order to try and get ratings and sell newspapers, when I wouldn't be surprised at all if this thing is a category 2 by the time it hits landfall. And that's assuming that it doesn't make a beeline to the right and head up the coast rather than running over Florida or into Texas, the Texas Panhandle again. But, I heard this morning that someone said, I'm just praying that it doesn't happen. And of course, I kind of feel the same way. I don't want anybody else to suffer or anybody else to die because of one of these brutal storms. But look, this sucker's a ways away. So let's let it play out. Be cautious. Make sure you're prepared. And then when it looks like, hey, it's going to hit and it looks like it's going to be a pretty severe storm, then you make the decision. Do I get out of town? Do I hunker down? What's my play? But don't live your life in fear. There is always going to be something for you to be worried about. And if you live your life that way, it's not a life, it's an existence. And your life was meant for more than that. So keep that in mind when you're making your decisions. Yes, weigh the pros and cons, be cautious, make sure that you're not putting yourself into a situation that's going to be detrimental to you. But at the end of the day, take some risks, take some chances. Don't live your life in fear. Guys, I will be back in 8 days. Until then, be safe, be good. I'll talk to you then.